Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement, folks, and this is part 2 of our top Tony in the Trenches in the year 2023. We're recording this show on January 2nd, 2024, and we had so many questions that we set up and kind of reviewed with the staff, and some of the most common questions, we've had to allocate 2 different shows to cover these questions. I hope you're enjoying them. So without further ado, in the studio, we have Mr. Aaron Orander, America's favorite financial sidekick. There's Aaron over there, along with Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson. You got everything queued up, ready to go, Derek?
Got it ready.
All right, stop me now if there's anything I goof up on. This is a little loosey-goosey, but we had already some great feedback about other Tony in the Trenches we've done in the past, so that's why we're dedicating 2 shows to questions. And I think, Aaron, you've got our next one teed up over there, don't you, partner?
Yeah, Tony, here we go. This one says, Tony, I've been with the same advisor for over 10 years. My concern is that he is in his late 50s. And while I really like the guy, I am worried that if he retires or something happens to him, I'll be stuck with the big firm he works for and just become a number to them. How do I tell him that I'd like to make a change?
Well, believe it or not, folks, this is a pretty common thing I come up with. People see us, they've maybe had an advisor, a good relationship over the years, but they realize something's missing. There's not this game plan that we've been able to share with them. Maybe the advisor really doesn't have a firm that's working on all the tax planning issues, all these things that go into retirement planning. They're just at a phase in life where, quite frankly, they kind of need to break up, for lack of a better word, with advisors. In fact, the other day we were talking about this, some of the staff in Bowling Green, and how difficult this is for some people that really want to work with us, and they kind of call it the breakup deal. And Heather Hughes goes, Tony, you think it's bad breaking up with an advisor? Try breaking up with your hairdresser. So I got to ask you guys, Aaron, have you ever had to break up with, do you have a hairdresser? We have barbers, don't we?
We have barbers. We don't have salon stylists and hairdressers, folks. I don't know. No, I've never had to break up with a barber / hairstylist.
Derek?
No, I started seeing a barber like a year ago, and I kind of want to go back to shaving my head. I don't know how to break it to him.
Wow.
But actually, and my barber finally retired. I was with him from the time I was 14, I kid you not, until it's been about 5 years ago. Had the same barber every time I'd sit down. His name was Rick. He'd say, Tony, shape her up about the usual. I'd say, yeah, Rick, shape her so what? Is that 50 some odd years? I did find somebody. It was pretty hard to find somebody that cuts the hair just like Rick, so I'm in good shape. But folks, here's the point. Eventually, at some point in your lives, you're going to have to consider another advisor. Either the advisor you're now enjoying maybe doesn't cut the muster in terms of retirement planning. Maybe they were a broker and you're needing some more expertise, just like you would in the medical field. I mean, sometimes your general practitioner is good for certain things, but at some point you need a specialist. That's what we are. We're retirement planning specialists. So then the breakup might begin there. Maybe the breakup begins because your advisor is retired. More and more people are getting older in the advisor sector. In fact, put this article up, Aaron. Very interesting that a lot of advisors 10 years from now they're predicting aren't going to be around. Here's another article. A lot of female advisors for various reasons are just getting out of the business. Not to mention what happens if your advisor passes away. Folks, these are huge issues and I get it, but you got to remember this is your money. Moving forward, you're moving into a new phase of life and you better get this right, because if you go through this phase of retirement and don't have things right, positioned properly, you're not saving on taxes, there's no do-overs. So here's what I would suggest right now, just to get a second opinion, there's no cost or obligation. Why don't you consider talking to us at Tony Walker Financial? It's free and easy to do. Just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Not only do we have myself as a fiduciary, we have 3 highly trained salaried fiduciaries. And you might say, well, what's the importance of that, Tony? Because eventually something's going to happen to yours truly. You see, our salaried fiduciaries are trained in our process, our proprietary worry-free retirement process. They're going to be there to assist you long after Tony Walker, for whatever reason, is not. So take advantage of talking to us, TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or give us a call at the number on your screen. All right, Aaron, what's next?
Tony, I recently met with you to learn more about your split IRA concept, and when I talked to the guy at the bank, he said he could do the same thing. So I guess my question is, why should I go with Tony Walker Financial versus staying with my bank?
Well, this is an excellent question, and this comes up a lot. And I would say there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of advisors and institutions who can copy what we do at Tony Walker Financial. That's because, folks, we're all kind of in the same business in terms of the products we offer. Let's take a look at our split IRA concept, and let me share with you what we're talking about. This is an ingenious concept. Came up with this years ago to diversify the retirement planning process. You see, it used to be the money managers either threw you all in the stock market. That would be this bucket over here, and you just hope for the best, and you live on what's called the 4% rule, etc., and just be willing to take risk. Then along comes annuities. About 20 years ago, they got more and more popular. People still do this, but now a lot of people just throw all of your money into an annuity. That's all they'll do. What we realized over the years in working with so many retirees, I mean, we have over 3,000 clients, most of whom are retired, you probably need both. In most cases, you're going to need both. You need the Charles Schwab. That would be your stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and bank products. The reason you want the Charles Schwab is for what we call liquidity. So you can get access to your money, and in case you want to try to grow some of that money, maybe you're okay with some money in the stock market, we could continue to do that at a fee of only 0.8%. And that doesn't even include all of our planning. All of the planning services we offer are absolutely free. But then you also have the annuities. You need the annuities, folks. If you're a saver, you're going to want those annuities. You could either do fixed interest, fixed indexed, income annuities. There's a whole host of annuity products. In fact, I would encourage you, if you're interested in learning more about the truth about annuities, download this free download. It's called Annuities Made Easy. It's something I personally wrote. It's absolutely free. You can download it, or if you're not comfortable downloading this, just email Gina at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's Gina at TonyWalkerFinancial.com, and she will be happy to get you a copy. So those are just the products, though. So anybody could basically kind of mimic what we're doing and try to sell you the products. But what happens after the sale? Is there a process? And usually there's not. We have developed our own process at Tony Walker Financial, so I really want to take a minute and walk you through this. So let's say you contact us and you say, hey, I want to talk to Tony. I'm getting ready to retire. I've got $500,000 in a 401k. I don't know what in the world's going on. I want to take advantage of this free meeting with Tony. What's going to happen? The first thing that's going to happen is you and I are going to meet in person to clarify your vision. What is it you're trying to accomplish in retirement? Folks, I've met with over 15,000 people. It's probably closer to 20,000 by now, but 15,000 people. I've done this a lot. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to be able to very quickly assess what's going on, which leads to our second step. That's called the assessment, and I'm personally going to do the assessment for you. I'm going to put my nearly 40 years of experience and all of these game plans I've overseen to look at your situation. And what we do, I then take that and give that to our income planning department. We put that in our proprietary software, and then we have another appointment. That's called the commitment phase. Now, what's going to happen there is unusual. Usually this is where a lot of advisors kind of strong-arm you, trying to make you make a decision real quickly, force you to do business, make you feel guilty if you don't. We don't do that. We make sure that you understand the plan, and then if you want to commit to the plan, we're going to help do all of that for you. In fact, that's called the implementation process. We have a really good staff at this. Currently, I have 17 full-time employees at Tony Walker Financial. All they do is make sure that things get implemented appropriately, get everything set up, all your distributions, make sure the tax withholdings, all of that is done at no additional out-of-pocket cost for all of those services. And then finally, a lot of people just don't do this, folks. I'm sorry. There's no way to monitor your progress if you don't have a written game plan. Now, you can have quarterly meetings all you want with your advisor, but I don't know what you're going to talk about other than how the investments might be doing, and that's kind of a crapshoot usually. A written game plan is what's going to keep you on track, and that's what we're monitoring at Tony Walker Financial. So if you don't feel like you really have a process, an advisor that's local, that understands retirement planning, again, take advantage of our services by logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or give us a call anytime. Did you realize that if you have more than $250,000 in retirement assets, the government could tax as much as 40% of it when you go to take it out? And with current tax rates set to expire in 2025, the taxes you will owe on your 401k could climb even higher. Don't wait until 2025 to see how much Uncle Sam will take of your money. Get a game plan by logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a pension buyout? Has the company you work for moved, been acquired, or closed its doors forever? And finally, do you have a 401k with a previous employer you'd like to move to safer territory? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k or lump sum pension to Tony Walker Financial. Let's meet in person to discuss your retirement options. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your free, no obligation appointment. Let us help you today. All right, Aaron, I know you got a handful of them still to go over there. Let's go to the next TNT.
Yeah, Tony, I got the next one right here. Here we go. Tony, I recently moved a lot of money into bank CDs to take advantage of high interest rates. However, I'm worried that interest rates will go down and be right back to square one, earning little to nothing on my money and, heaven forbid, having to rely on the stock market again. At this stage of my life, I do not wish to take a lot of risk. What other options for safe investments does Tony Walker Financial offer?
A really good question here. And one of the things that's happening as we record this show in January of 2024, we're already seeing it. We predicted this would probably happen, folks. Interest rates shot through the roof in 2023, which is fine for savers because we were able to effectuate high CD rates through our Charles Schwab platform for our clients, well into some of them almost 6% in the heyday. They're already coming down. And then multi-year guaranteed annuities. We were able to get some of those at over 6%. Folks, by the time you see these shows, these will be aired in February, Aaron?
Yeah, these are going to air on February 11th and 18th.
Okay. Who knows? The rates are coming down, and we suspected this would happen. So you might be sitting there and saying, Tony, but I want a decent interest rate. I'm tired of taking risk. Maybe you're retired. You want to just lock in some of that money. What are three options you have available with Tony Walker Financial? Let's take a look. The first thing is, we still have some very competitive rates on what's called MYGAs. That stands for multi-year guaranteed annuities. And right now, as we record this show, we can get them at around 5.5% guaranteed for 5 years. That's no risk, no fees, and we can even have the interest sent to you monthly. And you might say, well, what happens after the end of the 5 years? Nothing. The rate is available to you. It's going to expire. We can look at other rates to see what's available. You could take all the money out if you wanted to. There's no penalty whatsoever after the 5th year. These are really, really good products. Number two, we can go to what's called our conservative strategy. That's within our Charles Schwab bucket. This does include short-term bonds, a little bit of mixture of the stock market, some ETFs. It's a very, very good fund. It'll have a little more volatility, but over the long term, should return some pretty good returns. I will say now, the conservative strategy does have a little bit of risk. There is the chance of it going down. So some people may or may not want that, but it is a very good option. And finally, number three, long-term fixed indexed annuities. In fact, I'm going to go over to the whiteboard. I want to show you how these products work because we haven't talked about these in a while. It's pretty ingenious what we have one particular company doing. Actually, a couple of companies are doing this. So let me explain to make sure you understand how a fixed indexed annuity works. Generally, we usually spread these out over a longer period of time. These are true retirement planning products, folks. But essentially, let's say the stock market is here. We're going to say this is 2024. Let's predict at the end of 2024, beginning 2025, the market crashes. We'll say January. Maybe it crashes, and then in January of 2026, it goes back up. So if you had your money in the stock market, let's put stock market here, traditional stock market, your money goes down, it comes back up. After a couple of years, this would basically be a roller coaster, right? I mean, you really took 2 years to get back to break even. You had a lot of sleepless nights. You may be at a point in time say, Tony, that's why I'm not in the stock market, partner. That's why Tony in the Trenches is talking about safe investments. So how would have this fixed indexed annuity behaved during that 2-year period of time when the market went down and came back up? Well, the first year, we'll start it over down here, kind of show you. So the first year when the market went down, the beauty of a fixed indexed annuity, it wouldn't have made anything, but it would not have lost anything. All right? So it's called a new floor. So whatever it's going to make the year prior to it, you will get that interest. If it doesn't make anything or the market tanks, the worst you can do is zero. As we like to say, zero's your hero when the market's tanking. But this is what's interesting. As the market started coming back, remember up here, you'd be basically back to break even, hadn't made anything. But let's say in this example, the market went up 20%. And let's say you had a product with what's called a participation rate of 40%. That means this would have gone up 8%. And now what's wonderful about these products is that would be your new floor. So with a fixed indexed annuity, especially a long term, you got to look at these long term. Generally, we set them up for 10-year periods of time. Incidentally, you can take out 10% penalty free out of these every year if you want to. There's no penalty at death. So yeah, these are not a problem, but they have to be embedded into a plan. You don't want to put 100% of your money in these because they are not real liquid. Okay, remember we talked about the split IRA. Put that up, Aaron, full screen. The split IRA might have a couple of different annuities. This might be one of the annuities we have among a whole host of different types of annuities based on your situation. I know this gets complicated, folks, but that's why you want to work with a specialist and not just an annuity peddler slapping your money in just one annuity. Be very careful with these products. Now, what's interesting is we have a couple of companies, very, very new technology, and I love this. The only problem with a traditional fixed indexed annuity is you have to wait for your anniversary times whenever you took out the policy to lock in those gains. So if the market were to go down right before your anniversary comes up, let's say it's been up, you might go back to zero. You don't make anything. Some of these products we have, we can lock in the rate midterm. So what can happen is, let's say you might say, well, Tony, if that thing's going up this year and it gets up to around 8%, just lock it in. I don't want to take any chances waiting for it to go back to zero. We can do that. So there's a lot of technologies out in the annuity world. That's why I call them modern day annuities. Many of you are reading articles. Number one, people don't understand annuities. They're ignorant about these products, or they're talking about annuities like our grandparents used to use. Folks, these are modern day annuities. They're more built with a chassis geared towards savers who are retiring in what we call the 21st century. This is not your granddad's retirement. We have products and we have ways of setting these products up that can give you maximum use, maximum flexibility, and maximum control. By the way, I would order this handy dandy guide. It's called Annuities Made Easy. Let me mention that again. Download that or email Gina at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. It's a great little booklet. It's going to help you cut through the myths and misconceptions of annuities. All right, I'm going to get back over to the monitor. All right, Aaron, time for one more?
Yep, we got time for one more, Tony. Here we go. Tony, I've heard you mention the age of 59 and a half as an age that I can move my 401k to you guys and still work and contribute to my 401k. How does that work? And what are the advantages to me?
One of the most common questions we have is people realizing that once they turn 59 and a half, most employers will let you roll over that 401k even if you are still working. Let me explain. So basically, let's say you're putting money into your 401k and your employer's matching and you're saying, Tony, I want to keep contributing to it. I want to get that company match, but what if I roll over the 401k to you guys? How's that going to work? Well, in comes our split IRA. You might say, well, why would I do that? Well, first of all, we're going to be able to get products that generally a 401k does not offer. Many of the fees that we have that with the ETFs over here in the Schwab that we'll select are actually lower fees than many of the expense ratios that your 401k is charging. Plus, obviously, we love annuities, and the different types of annuities we can get are not available to the vast majority of 401k plans. So here's how this would work. Again, money goes into the 401k. That's called your new money. The new money continues to come in. We do not stop that. We take the old money. That's the money we're going to toss into the split IRA. Now, the beauty of this, since you're over 59 and a half, even if you needed money, we'll have that set up and linked to your checking account. So if you had an emergency, if you wanted to start at a monthly amount for whatever reason now, we could do that. Our office will do all of the tax withholdings. We'll do everything for you at a charge of only 0.8%. That's about half of what most money managers charge. And then also we'll have the annuities set up. And if you want, we'll even have some of that beloved So the purpose of these annuities, or that particular annuity, is to provide that guaranteed income you can never outlive. So here's my thoughts. If you've got an old 401k with a previous employer, maybe you've been retired for years, or you're over the age of 59 and a half, Take advantage of learning more about our split IRA concept. Let us show you how you can be worry-free in retirement by taking control of your money. All you got to do to find out more about our operation and the split IRA concept is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Click on that Let's Get Started button, or of course you can always call the toll-free number on your screen. All right, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about what the Bible has to say about money, not only banking, but something called imputed income. Good stuff coming your way. We'll be right back. Our employee spotlight shines brightly today on my favorite nephew and fellow fiduciary, Wes Walker. How you doing, Wes?
Good, Tony. How are you today?
Doing great. Tell us again how long you've been with Tony Walker Financial now.
I started in January of 2020.
And tell the folks a little bit about your duties here.
So kind of a bit of what I do is I look a lot at different portfolios that people have, as well as the portfolios that we manage in-house. And then along with that, act as a full-time fiduciary and financial advisor in mainly the Louisville and Lexington offices.
And we always like to make sure our clients out there know how much we enjoy our work here. What is the one thing you would say about your work and Tony Walker Financial that you enjoy the most, Wes?
Yeah, kind of my favorite thing or my most enjoyable part about working at Tony Walker Financial is helping people get a better gauge on their risk tolerance. So just a quick example, let's say somebody had $1 million that they were moving over, and at the time they had 70% in the stock market. Well, that's $700,000. In like a 2008 scenario, the market was down 50%. So in that example, they could lose $350,000 just like that. So to try and head that off of the past, show them what they have and what could be a better alternative is really my favorite part about what I do.
Well, thank you, Wes, for all you do for our clients and, of course, your contributions to Tony Walker Financial.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are you retired or retiring soon? Do you have a 401k, IRA, 403b, thrift savings account, or lump sum pension that you'd like to move to safer territory? Did you know that all the money you see on your 401k statement isn't really yours? Depending on your overall taxable income, the government has essentially a lien on your 401k that can tax as much as 40% of your money when you go to take it out. Tony Walker calls this the 401k tax tumor. For almost 40 years, retirement specialist Tony Walker has helped thousands of savers worry less about money by creating game plans to deal with your tax tumor. Get control of your retirement by controlling the taxes owed on it. Schedule a free meeting to see if you can reduce your tax tumor and provide a guaranteed income you can never outlive. To get started, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Hey folks, welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. We're going to get to the Bible segment right now. Here we go. So Tony, last week the TNT dealt with banking and what does banking have to do with the Bible and everything. So go ahead and elaborate on that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. We covered this verse of Scripture and we focused on this word reconciled. In other words, when you turn your life over to God through faith in Christ, you are reconciled. Remember, if you have an unreconciled checking account, you've got a problem. There's an error and generally a cost to get that thing corrected. Assuming it's your fault that there's an error, it is unreconciled. It's not even or balanced. And then we see this verse. This is an interesting verse found in Romans 4:24. We introduce this word, to whom righteousness will be imputed for us who believe in him who raised Jesus from the dead. So what does this word imputed mean? Is that an accounting term? Yes, it is. So let's go over here. Last week we made a relation to banking and some of these key words in Scripture that announce our reconciliation. Now we have this word imputed, all right? Now, let me take you back in history. Back in the late 80s, I used to do a lot of estate planning, worked with a lot of business owners that were doing very well. And back in the 80s and early 90s, a lot of businesses were incorporated as C corporations because you had the employer side, which was a tax rate of a certain amount, which was low back then, and then the tax rates for employees were higher. So the idea was, especially if you were self-employed, made a lot of money, you were thinking, what if I need life insurance or other benefits? Let's say you wanted $40,000. Well, if that went right to the employee, that might be at a 40% tax rate. And with C corporations, the rates back then were lower. So it's like, well, how could I buy life insurance, permanent life insurance? Maybe the employee wanted $1 million of whole life insurance, but wanted the employer to pay for it. Could you do that? Yes, you could. It was called split dollar life insurance. It's still used some today, but these were really popular because of the difference in tax brackets back then and leveraging this tax bracket that was at a lower rate at the corporate level. For those of you who are sub S like I am now, it just flows through. It doesn't matter. It's the same tax bracket, so we don't use split dollar anymore. But in this example, the $40,000 was taxed to the corporation, but there was something called a PS 58 cost that was, here's the key word, it was imputed to the employee. In other words, for this huge $1 million benefit, death benefit, tax-free, the corporation was going to pay most of the premium. For the IRS, for this thing to pass muster, the IRS said, okay, employee, you got to pay something. You can't just get it for free. So we're going to impute a small charge called the PS 58 charge. You're going to pay taxes just on the imputed amount. Maybe that was only $1,000 or something. In other words, it was a huge break, but nevertheless, it was still taxed. The imputed meant you got all this benefit up here for very little cost. So let's go back to Romans now. You see, Romans 4:24 reminds us of this imputed righteousness. Now, the difference between the imputed righteousness by faith in Jesus Christ that God offers is there is no cost. In other words, it's imputed, it's given to us, whereas at least we had to pay something to get the benefits of this life insurance through the split dollar concept. The grace of God and faith in Christ imputes His righteousness on us at no cost. So right now you might be sitting there saying, Tony, that sounds all well and good. I like this idea of imputed and lower taxes. Can we get back to that though? And yes, we can. Because folks, as we close out today's show, I want to remind you, as we record this show in January of 2024, in 1 year, at the end of 2025, these low tax rates are going to expire. Now, are we going to go back to these old rates back in the 80s? We could. But the problem is if you don't act now, you're going to be stuck with whatever the new rates might be at the end of 2025. So let's get a game plan now, at least talk. If you've got more than $250,000 in retirement assets, maybe you've recently inherited a bunch of money and you don't want to pay more than your fair share to the government, we need to talk. Just log on right now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. You're going to click on that Let's Get Started button. We'll arrange what we call our free 10-minute fiduciary phone call, or if you'd like, you can just simply call the toll-free number on your screen. Well, we hope you've enjoyed these last two shows of the Tony in the Trenches. Next week, we are going to be recording, our 500th episode of the Worry-Free Retirement. It's going to be a dandy, but you're going to have to tune in for that. But you remember, between now and next week, if all else fails, you make it a good one and you be worry-free.